Hello, today I'm going to talk about my first game jam and all the stuff I did as a musician in my first game jam. I am mostly a gigging musician who plays bass guitar in bands, but I've always loved video games and video game soundtracks, and I just thought this seemed like a really cool opportunity to finally get involved after years of procrastinating and wondering if I'm good enough. My best friend is this little thing, the Yamaha Reface CP. I played one of these at a friend's house and I fell in love with it. It's lightweight, it's easy to use, it has a ton of cool sounds built in, and the action is great. And it doesn't feel like a cheap toy like a lot of the stricter MIDI controllers do.
Got him.
And it's much more fun than playing the QWERTY keys on my keyboard like I did for a long time. So on day one, we didn't really have an idea fully fleshed out, but one thing that seemed to prevail was this unicycle idea. Our artist Dev Chef drew up this cute little guy riding around, and I mean, while things weren't in full motion yet, I just wanted to start turning my wheels, so I opened up Studio One and just started playing. I'm a big fan of the Arturia keyboard VSTs, and especially the CS80 VST, because it has a lot of these soft, classic video game kind of presets. I'm not really the type to spend hours turning knobs to get a sound. I kind of just want to start playing, so I landed on this very all-purpose analog synth sound as a bass layer. Lately, I've been really obsessed with this song Doctor My Eyes by Jackson Browne, which I really think is just one of the best songs ever made, and it has this bouncing feel between the bass note and the chord in the right hand. I'm not really much of a keyboard player, but I learned this song all the way through just because I liked it so much, and the two elements that inspired me here were the rhythmic interaction between the bass note and the chord, and the way the chords move. So I ended up playing this. I got this sort of descending motion down. My rhythm isn't perfect, so I had to quantize it. But from there, I felt like it was just time to add some detail layers. I was a little on the fence about adding a bass at all, but I decided a subtle bass line was worth it, so just kept it simple with some little octave jumps to help it stand out. So there we have it. Yeah, I ended up using this eventually for the theme that you hear on the title page of our game season cycle, which was not initially my expectation. I thought I was just messing around, but I think it turned out pretty well. It suits the sort of feel of the game and the general sounds I ended up using, and I'm happy with it. So yeah, successful mission. So on day 2 of the game jam, we discussed our ideas a little further and landed on the initial idea for a game. An endless runner sort of puzzle game with a spinning wheel that can select the season to solve the problem presented. I had a meeting with the team, and the idea we landed on for the music was a central theme that has variants for each season, with maybe recurring motifs or instruments that can signal the season, which I thought was really cool. So I had to think a bit about seasons and what kind of sounds define them. I guess when I personally think about the seasons, to me, summer and winter are the extremes, and spring and fall are more like transitionary periods between those. So the important thing to me was making it feel like winter and summer are energetically opposed, even while using the same chords. I decided to start with fall because it feels like a bit of a midpoint, so it can act as an anchor between the two extremes. Autumn to me is a jazzy, folky time. It's time to crank up the Bill Evans. Well, not crank it up, but listen to it at an appropriate volume. So my goal with the fall theme is to keep it fairly acoustic, fairly chill, but not totally devoid of energy. You know, we're winding down for the summer, but there's still time to go outside. The winter theme in all 3 songs is probably my favorite. Here I really got to peel back the layers and just chill and make something soft and pretty. The acoustic piano turns into a wetter, wider Rhodes piano. The Mellotron flute turns into Mellotron strings, and probably most notably the drums pull way back to just these soft ride taps, but we keep the upright bass. Spring was a little trickier for me, because what really defines spring as a season? To me, it's usually optimism, sort of a feeling that everything's going to be alright after a long winter of waking up in the dark and going home in the dark and being miserably cold the whole time. I still don't know if I really nailed the feeling here, but my goal was to bring the energy back up and edge towards something less acoustic and heavier. The upright bass of the previous 2 seasons turns into an electric bass. We borrow Fall's acoustic piano, but it's comped alongside a swingy, almost reggae-ish guitar. And the Mellotron melodies are gone, and they're replaced by electric guitar. The drums aren't too different, but they're the busiest they've ever been, with a full kick and snare and everything. Then in summer, it's just all-out energy. There's an electric organ playing the chords and the familiar melody, but it's almost drowned out by electric guitar. Our new melody is played by a washed-out, overdriven electric guitar, and the drums are completely pushed to the max. It's hot and sweaty and sounds like bored teenagers playing out of their garage. This was a tough season to mix compared to the rest, and I'm still not really sure how I feel about how it turned out, but the game must go on. So if our first genre was this sort of jazz/rock thing at 120 beats per minute, I knew we'd have to bump it up to about 140 to feel a speed difference, and 140 beats per minute is the perfect tempo for house music. I can't completely rely on the same ideas as the last track, but I wanted to have some thematic consistency here. So once again, I started with the fall track. I can't completely remember how I came up with these chords, but it was probably just fiddling around with the keys to the 4 on the floor beat. Again, here we have the piano, the upright bass, and the mellotron flute, but I tacked on some of these quiet percussive CS80 bits in addition just to make it more interesting. Winter once again thins out a lot. I had to think a bit about how to do this without completely losing the house music feel, and thankfully I didn't have to try for too long before landing on this kick drum feel. The Rhodes is back, reverbier than ever, and as are the mellotron strings. This time, late in the process, I also added some melody from the Rhodes, and the big string crescendo every few bars keeps growing in intensity, adding a note to the chord, and I think it sounds really cool. Spring marks the return of the electric bass and guitar, as well as the 4 on the floor beat with the new house music invention of the hi-hat. I borrowed one of the CS80s from the fall track as well, and just threw in this little thing because it sounds cool, no other reason really. But we're pushing the energy way up, you gotta get going. And finally, the summer adds the snare drum and the energy's pushed to the max. Instead of rock music, I wanted to go in more of a funk or a disco direction, bringing in the washed out electric guitar solo in a funkadelic kind of mood. And I just totally went for it on bass guitar with the octaves and all. Definitely the second speed feels quite a bit more stressful than the first speed. It's challenging music. In the words of a certain someone, you gotta go fast. So we cranked it up about 20 BPM. Where do we go from here? Well, another 20 BPM, of course. And there isn't much music that sits at a comfortable 160 BPM except a tried and true video game classic.
Drum and bass.
I can't accept drum and bass. We need jungle, I'm afraid.
I have to admit, while I am a drum and bass and jungle enjoyer, I'm not an expert in this music at all. This is a very deep world, and there are tons of people who just make this kind of music, and they know every synth patch and crazy chopping method like the back of their hand. I am envious of them, and I have to make another admission here. I had to use samples for the drums. I know, it's not as cool as ripping these out on drums myself, but I don't know if learning how to play jungle for real is the best use of my time in a week-long game jam, and jungle is such a sample-based genre anyway that I don't feel like it's totally cheating to pull some samples in. Admittedly though, since I am kind of a jungle novice, it was tough to fit the same motifs and instruments back into the box here. I did bring back the upright bass and mellotron flute for the fall theme here, but I needed something way wetter for the keys to really feel right in this genre. I also tacked on some additional percussion. Delay is the name of the game here. Just slap analog delay on anything you can and it'll sound huge and atmospheric and vibey. That's drum and bass, that's jungle, baby. For winter, the challenge was keeping the drum and bass beat while still pulling back the energy. My idea was to throw some distortion on that bad boy, and it turned out really cool. Not much else to say about that, but I like this one a lot. Distinguishing spring and summer was a real challenge for me on this one because I'm not totally sure how to involve electric guitar quite as much in this kind of music. Spring drops the upright bass as usual, marks the full return of a drum beat, and turns the legato-held keyboard notes into a choppier rhythm. I also added this little thing where I fake sneeze because it's allergy season. I don't know, these tracks always have these silly reverby ad-libs, and I thought it was funny. And finally, for summer, I was just kind of vibing and trying to figure out how to keep the energy high. First, these drums that I found that are pretty high energy. Then this weird sequencer preset that I fiddled with to sound more percussive. Then a weird slinky, busy bass line that still doesn't sound quite as good as the insane stuff they were playing on the PS2. And then finally this descending melody that I just kind of heard in my head. All in all, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think it's pretty suitably video gamey, pretty fun, and definitely gets the heart pumping.